Welcome once again, wonderful people. This is where we left off in the previous tutorial. We looked at the equals and the contains method of a collection of a list. And then one thing that I want us to do is to continue in this. We are going to continue in this, and this time we are going to look at let me just check what we will look at. We will look at static members and functions. So one thing that I'm going to just do there is to just create a class. So I'll just come here and I will say add a class, and I'm going to call this class a car. So we are going to call this a car, and here we are. We will just end the car, right? So this car will have a private string which we will call the model of the car, and then I will have a public constructor of car, and the constructor will receive a string parameter which is the model value of this car, right? And then I just want to have a default write line inside there that just says okay, I need to import. I can just come here and just import, copy this and just paste that. Right, let me just have a write line, and in this write line I will just say object created, and you can use a threading system here just to have the dot animation if you want, just to nicely make your work. So the first thing, when you are inside of this constructor, you will have this object is created, because I know that when you create an object of this car, you have to provide a string argument of the model value. So it will come here and execute that line, and then I'll just say I don't have to use this keyword here because the names are not identical, so I will just might as well just leave that, right? And then we can continue. And one thing that I want to do here, I want to increment, very important, inside of this car. First of all, we have this string which is private and it is the model, and then secondly we have a string which is the model value as a parameter when you construct this car. And then I just have this write line and I'm saying the model is equals to this model. So when you construct this car and you are passing in a parameter string there, it will take that string and assign it to the private member field. All right. And then one thing I want to do here, whenever you are creating these objects, okay, let me just have a static first. Let me just come here. Let me just do this, right? Outside of this constructor, let me have a public static int which I will call cars count, right? So we have this public static int cars count, Right, this is what we have. And then once we have had this, I will just go inside of this constructor that I have, and then every time you create an object of the car, it will just keep on incrementing the static member, which is cars count, and it will increment that by 1. So this is just to say, when you create for every object that you create of a car, it will be able to tell me how many objects you have created. So I'm having this public static int cars count. So this will count the cars. It is static. You don't have to instantiate this, but you can access this via the name of the class. Okay, this is just what should happen. And then we can go to the main, and allow me, when I am inside of the main, to just comment a few things. Let me just remove this here, and let me just paste it there. All right, the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to set the value of the static member, because look, inside of cars here, I did not set the value of this. It should add to something. This must add to something, because it is a public static. It's an int, so it has to add to something. Right, so the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm gonna come here, and I know I will access that via the name of the class. So it is inside a car, and then when you say dot, and then you have this cars count, and I will initialize that with a value of 0, because you have not yet created the objects. So let's just say the counter is 0, and then I will have a write line. And in this write line, we will have initial cars count. So we will have initial cars count. And let me just have a space, use the append, and then I will say car dot cars count. So I have not yet created any objects, so it will have a value of 0, just to tell me that initial cars count, you have not yet created any objects, so the value there is 0. Alright, that is fine. So let me just create the instances. I can just say car, and then I will call this car object1, car obj1 equals new. But I know when I create a car, the constructor must accept one string argument, and I will call this Toyota Corolla. Right, and I'm gonna copy this and at least create 3 models. So I will just call this car 2, and I will call that one car 3. So this is going to be a Scirocco, and this one will be Tez. Alright, that is fine, nothing is wrong with this. And then I will have a write line, and in this write line I will say final cars count, and I will use the append. I will go to the class dot access the static member, and it will tell me how many objects I have. Final cars count, that should return for me 3 of them. Okay, that is fine. This is something very simple. All right, now what is it that we want to do here? So I'm just having that. So is this all that I want to do? Yes, I think that's all what I want to do. Now remember, when I'm in here, it will say object created, and it will give me and I'm saying the model is equals to the model there. Okay, that's fine. So every time you create an object of a car, it will say object created, and for the second one, object created, and this will just return the count, and then it will just say final cars equals that. So please be very careful of this. So let us just try to run our program and see what will happen. So let us just try to run that and check how things will transpire. So initial cars count is 0. So which line is that? It's the first line. We have not yet created anything here. There it is. And then I'm creating the object, and then it will say object created. Which line is that? It's this one. Very important. So you created the second one, it will say object created. You created the third one, and then once that is done, it will come here and say the value is 3. This is just something simple that we all know, right? Now this is what, now remember here we were just looking at a static member type. So we were looking at just a static member type. Now remember, we said now static functions and properties are declared in the body but do not need to create instances of their usage. This is true. We did not need to create the instance of, for example, the cars count, because if it is a static, you can access it via the class name, so you don't have to create an object of that. And this is exactly what we saw. Now static properties store value about the class. It's a property, the value is specified for the class. Okay, that is fine. We are not going to stress ourselves so much about that. And then one thing that I want us to do is to look at static functions. Static functions cannot use non-static class. If you want to have a static function, you can't, because you must make your class static. For example, I can say static void, and I can say feed, and I can come here. Right, and then this will be fine. It is just a method, and this method will not cause any problem. Let's look at the class. The class is internal, so this is a static method, but we are speaking about here a static function. Please, let's just understand how to differentiate that. So static functions cannot use non-static class member, though it is declared in a class. Right, so they are defined via the keyword static, and the syntax for that can be static, and then the function type, and then you can provide the function name and the number of arguments. So I think it will be best if we try and do this with an example. So one thing that we are going to do, we are going to create a class. Suppose we create a class, add class, and let's just call this class a person. Right, this person that we have created, okay, let me just come here. He will have a private string, which we will call the name of this person, and I will have a public static void, and I will say print hello. And what I will do when I'm inside here, I will just have a write line. I will just have, okay, I need to import. Let me just, oh sorry, okay, it's fine. Let me say console dot write line, and I'll just print hello. And these are static methods. Now let me just show you how this works very quickly. So static methods are accessed via the name of the class. So I can come here, and when I'm here I can say person dot, and there it is. I have access to the hello method that accepts no argument, and I can run this and it will do exactly what needs to be done. There it is, hello. So this is something very simple, something that I wanted to share with you guys when it comes to static members and static functions. So I will see you again in the next tutorial.